I'm going to use some material from New York Times that appeared after this really horrendous flood in Nepal. The number of deaths being mentioned so far are remarkably low for the images that we are seeing, the videos, so the number is bound to go up. In the meantime, we have to just hope for the best, right? And here is the map of where the flooding happened. Here is India, China, Mount Everest sits here. This is Nepal. The capital Kathmandu is here, and this is the area of flooding. Botu Kosi is how it's pronounced, I think, the name of the river, which is about 95 kilometers long, and almost 80 kilometers of it is within Tibet, and then about 13-14 kilometers enters Nepal on a very steep slope, known for its exciting kayaking, tourism, and so on. And there were several hundred tourists missing, I think, reported to be missing. There are, I think. Maps and images show the devastation in Nepal's flooding is the title. Floodwaters swept away villages near the border between Nepal and the Tibet region of China on Wednesday, leaving more than 1,000 people missing. At least 180 people have been confirmed killed, and the toll is expected to rise. Scientists said that the flood was most likely unleashed after an enormous chunk of ice broke off from a glacier high in the mountains. The deadly flooding in Nepal on Wednesday was likely set off, at least in part, by an enormous chunk of ice snapping off a glacier and cascading thousands of feet to the valley below. Thousands of feet below, so you can see how water can come down so fast with all the debris. And this is according to an initial assessment by a group of geologists and glaciologists. The phenomenon is known as ice avalanche. You can imagine how much erosion it will do considering its mass, compared to just water coming down. It looks like a glacier in the area basically snapped off in a clean break, allowing it to fall just over a vertical kilometer to the valley bottom, said Daniel Sugar, a geologist at the University of Calgary in Canada who studied satellite imagery to analyze what happened. The bottom looks like a bomb exploded. It's just deposits from the broken up glacier. So this is the older article cited here to talk about glaciers, and it's a nice line here. A dead glacier is a loss, a dying one is a threat. Melting ice from the Himalayas is creating thousands of unstable lakes, a growing menace to towns and cities below. So here is a map that I stole from New York Times article, Kathmandu. So you're looking south from China. Tibet is mentioned here. This is the Sale village, I don't know how it's pronounced, and this is where the aftermath of the avalanche is visible on satellites that's mentioned, and the likely avalanche site is cited as here. It's shown here, and this is the Langtong Lirung. These are regions for reference. These is the glacier that apparently cracked and fell down about a kilometer, and the area of flooding is along here, which is in Nepal. So this is generally the Himalaya, and the Botekoshi river is mentioned here, and so all the debris and water flew down, and the Girong border crossing happens here between Tibet and Nepal, and Botekoshi river is the one that really exploded, and Siapru Besi is here. Trishuli river was on alert, and it flows into India further down, and India has been in alert as well. In fact, this river becomes, there is something called Saptakoshi, so many tributaries come together. It's called Kosi in some places, and it's called a river of sorrow in Bihar because it's very erratic, routinely causes floods. And Botikosi and this region in general has had floods before, as we will see, I think, here. This is a very nice map showing all the survey of glacial lakes, very nice, showing so many of the glacial lakes, which basically means with global warming, especially when El Nino adds to the warming, they become hotspots for GLOFs or glacial lake outburst floods, depending on their configuration. Not all glacial lakes are necessarily going into GLOF. So this is a spillway of Imja Lake, which was built in 2016 and lowered the lake's level by 11 feet. So you build a spillway to get rid of the water so you don't build up volume. The lake is still eating into the glacier that feed it, causing it to grow longer. It's nearly 2 miles long, 2,000 feet wide, and hundreds of feet deep. Okay, so all these are obviously very vulnerable to the warming. Lots of glaciers in the Himalaya are melting. This is a video from the New York Times, and it's showing you the broader picture of how we start from the lake and flow into this waterway here, further down into the villages and so on. Oops, that's the end of that one. So sorry about that. It's not so long, but nonetheless, here is another map showing now the flat view. China, Tibet here, Himalayas in general, this broad range. Nepal sits here, the border between China, Tibet, and Nepal is here in the Girong border crossing. Botekosi River is right there. So this is the longer part of the river beyond the map. So aftermath of the avalanche is visible on satellites, and this is the likely avalanche site. Siapru Besi is here. Area of flooding is here. All the horrendous videos are coming from here. Trishuli River was on alert. We have to look up whether it did get flooded. Let's do that in real time. Was Trishuli River flooded? Yes, it was flooded 14 hours ago. Major flash flood. Yeah, so anyway, it's bad news all over. The giant torrent of mud, water, rocks, and ice swept through the area. It destroyed roads, snapped bridges, toppled buildings, and cut off communications, leaving a 40-mile-long path of destruction. It's really an understatement to say it toppled buildings. It simply gobbled them up and washed them out in front of all those CCTV cameras, and it's the most shocking image in a long time. Images below are the screenshots from surveillance footage that circulated on social media and were verified by the New York Times. That's why I used them. They show the moment of the landslide. The landslide ripped through the Girong crossing at China's border with Nepal. So here is the before, and you can see the flood coming, and you can see the entire thing get engulfed. I think this was an immigration center. In the footage, people are seen trying to escape the area, and then a massive wave of mud and a thick cloud of debris engulfs a parking structure and adjoining buildings. Within seconds, the buildings collapsed and at least a dozen vehicles were buried in mud. The mudslide continued downstream for at least 45 miles along the Trishuli River, so there is the Trishuli flooding, destroying buildings and bridges and flooding surrounding areas. The map below shows the path of destruction from the Girong border crossing deep into Nepal. So if it's just water like a tsunami, maybe people will somehow survive, but when it's mud, everybody just gets killed by, mud. I can't even use words how horrendous it looks. So here is the CCTV footage showing a wave of mud and water destroying buildings in Girong port. So that's the border crossing, and that's the immigration building, if I remember correctly. Here is China-Nepal border, the area of flooding, 45 kilometers or so, and you can see here, this is the CCTV footage, this is the helicopter footage shows flash flooding in Siapru Besi, which we looked at in the longer map. And for reference, keep looking at this here. Several houses partially covered by mud in the Trishuli Bazaar. You'll have to look at the before picture to see how many of them simply got washed away and buried in mud. Here is social media footage showing a bridge overtaken by a torrent of water more than 40 miles away from the border, so down from Girong Pass or Girong Crossing. The force of the landslide caused a seismic signal that registered a magnitude of 5.2 according to the US Geological Survey. Okay, these are the satellite imageries captured on Wednesday showing flood damage about 25 miles southwest of Girong Crossing. August 23 and August 26. Approximate river boundaries before flooding. This is Chaptok and Betravali Bazaar. And August 26, you can see the entire landscape change completely. This is the mud visible after the flooding, just the mud left behind. Waters may flow away after a flood if it's just, river overflows, but the mud can just stay, and which will make recovery really, really difficult. And I heard that there wasn't even a place for the chopper to land and rescue people and so on. So you can imagine just how bad this is going to be. And is it related to global warming and El Nino together? Obviously, this region has El Nino teleconnections in general, but this is the GFS 2-meter temperature anomaly for August 27, 2026, I think updated from Climate Reanalyzer, not I think, but it is already for today. This is about 5 p.m. on 27th, so they're already providing it. And this is the region where everything happened, and you can see from the European region into China, there's been this massive warm anomaly for a while. India is going through the monsoon, so you see some cooling here, but this region, is that what was responsible for creating the cracking of the glacier and the subsequent flooding? You can look at the July temperatures, and this is the surface air temperature anomaly for July 26 from Copernicus and ECMWF. Again, Europe into Western Asia, into Tibet and China. Very warm anomalies. And for reference, another one from Berkeley Earth shows the anomalies here much more obvious in terms of the scales used here. You can see the scales here try to show the negative temperatures. Here it's a slightly different one in terms of color choice, but shows much more dramatically how this entire region has been warm. I don't know what the circulation anomalies associated with these are. One can look at those, but obviously this region here could have been subject to long-term warming for well over a month, which could have caused the massive glacier avalanche, or whatever we want to call it in the end. So this is preliminary analysis, obviously, so we want to be careful, but it's worth thinking about just how El Nino and global warming together are making this year just a vision of the future, and the future is here. So we better get ready with early warnings, adaptation, resilience, and just international coordination. Okay?